Now, detectives are still going through evidence to determine the extent of their relationship, but police believe that this date was the first time these two had met in person. Police did not share details about the cause of death, and as for a motive, that is still under investigation. Live in the control room, Megan Spector, Fox 10 News.
Date. 12 News journalist Gabriella Becerra spoke with her mother and how is joining us now in studio with how she's being remembered. Gabby?
Well, Caribe, this family has a lot of questions about what happened to 21-year-old Arianna Jones, but the question they want answered the most is why.
He said two strangers jumped them in the desert. Knives. Chaos. He said he ran for his life. A 21-year-old mother never came home. Weeks later, investigators dug her out of the ground, not attacked by strangers, not where he claimed, not how he described. Buried. In a spot most people would never think to look, in a place he knew well. He told that story to the police with a straight face. Almost none of it was true. This video covers a real case involving violence and loss, and some details may be difficult to hear. Viewer discretion is advised. Glendale, Arizona. A city of 250,000 people, tucked into the West Valley just northwest of Phoenix. It's the kind of place people move to for the quiet sports stadiums, shopping centers, family neighborhoods, wide desert skies. By July of 2026, it was just another summer in the valley. Triple-digit heat, kids out of school, neighbors keeping their blinds shut against the sun. Nothing about the week of July 5th looked any different until a young mother stopped answering her phone. This isn't a story from decades ago, buried in a cold case file. It happened only weeks before this video was made. And as of right now, it's still unfolding. This is the story of a first date. Two people who'd only ever known each other through a screen, finally deciding to meet in person. What should have been the start of something turned into a nightmare, and the story one of them told police would slowly, piece by piece, fall apart. Arianna Bailey Jones was 21 years old. And by every account from the people who loved her, her whole life had been building toward finally getting things right. Her childhood wasn't easy. She was adopted at just 3 years old, and spent much of it in Mesa, Arizona, moving between homes before she found her way back to her biological mother, Sofia Sardinas, when Arianna was 18. Even during those harder years, people who knew her described a kid who stayed busy, running cross-country, playing flag football and soccer, cheering on the sidelines. After everything, she and her mother got their relationship back, and by all accounts, they held on to it tightly. By 21, Arianna was a mother herself, raising a 2-year-old son. Those who knew her said family was the center of everything for her. She wasn't just getting by, she had plans. She wanted a stable home. She wanted to build a future for her son that looked different from the one she'd had. She lived in an apartment near 59th and Northern Avenue in Glendale, the kind of quiet residential stretch you'd drive past without a second thought. She had a dog she looked after. She had brothers and sisters who loved her, friends who checked in on her, a mother who, as we'll see, would not stop looking for her. Like a lot of people her age, Arianna was active on social media. It's where she talked to friends, where she kept up with people from different parts of her life, and, in the days before July 5th, 2026, it's where she started talking to a man she'd never met in person. His name was Domonic Rodolico, and what started as messages on a screen was about to become the last new relationship of Arianna's life. Domonic Rodolico was 24 years old, living in Peoria, Arizona, the neighboring suburb just northwest of Glendale. On the surface, he was simply another young guy in the valley, active online, looking to meet people the way so many people his age do. But Rodolico wasn't a stranger to the legal system. At the time he and Arianna started talking, he was on supervised probation. A little over a year earlier, he'd pleaded guilty to criminal impersonation after investigators say he posed as an employee at a Quick Trip gas station, stole roughly $200 from the register, and then tried the same scheme at a second location. He was sentenced to 2 years of probation in November of 2025. None of that was necessarily visible to Arianna. What she saw was a man reaching out online, striking up conversation, someone who seemed interested in getting to know her. They talked back and forth through social media in the days leading up to July 5th, the way countless people do before ever meeting face to face. Earlier that day, before any of what was about to happen, Arianna had messaged with a relative around 5:30 p.m., just like she normally did. Nothing unusual, nothing that reads like a goodbye. And later that Sunday, she and Rodolico finally made plans to meet in person. This would be the very first time Arianna Bailey Jones and Domonic Rodolico were ever in the same room together. Sunday evening, July 5th, 2026. Around 9 p.m., Domonic Rodolico pulled up outside Arianna's apartment. By every account, it looked like an ordinary first date. He picked her up. They drove to Harkins Theaters in Norterra, a busy shopping and entertainment complex, the kind of place packed with families, teenagers, couples on dates just like theirs. Nothing about the two of them would have caught anyone's eye. Surveillance cameras caught them inside. They bought snacks. They bought drinks from the theater's white plastic souvenir cups, the kind that get tossed in a car cup holder and forgotten about within a day. They watched their movie. And then, cameras caught them one more time walking out of the theater together, each of them still holding those same souvenir cups, talking, together. Just two people finishing a date. It's an unremarkable piece of footage. Nothing dramatic happens in it. No argument, no tension, nothing that would make a stranger look twice. But that footage of Arianna Bailey Jones walking out of a movie theater, holding a plastic cup, laughing with a man she'd just met in person for the first time, is the last confirmed sighting anyone would ever have of her alive. From here, there are no more cameras, no more witnesses. Just two phones, moving together, heading north into the desert. Cell phone records would later show exactly what happened next. After leaving the movie theater, both of their phones began moving together north, away from the city, into a remote stretch of desert near Lake Pleasant. And then, roughly 45 minutes after arriving in that isolated area, Arianna's phone went dark. Not a dropped signal, not a dead battery in a random dead zone. Investigators would later describe it as consistent with the phone being powered off or deliberately disconnected. 10 minutes after that, Rodolico's phone started moving again alone, heading back toward the city. At that exact moment, nobody knew any of this. Not her mother, not her brothers and sisters, not her son, waiting for her at home. To them, July 5th just quietly turned into July 6th, the way ordinary nights always do. They had no idea the silence had already begun. By Monday, July 6th, no one had heard from Arianna. That alone was strange. Those close to her said she was someone who stayed in touch, texted her family, checked in, especially with a 2-year-old son at home waiting for her. One day of silence was unusual. 2 days was alarming. On Tuesday, July 7th, a relative finally called the police. It had officially been 2 full days since anyone had heard a word from her. Officers went to her apartment to check. What they found there made things worse, not better. The front door was damaged. Inside, her wallet was missing. And in the kennel, alone, was her dog with no food, no water, left that way for what appeared to be days. None of it looked like someone who'd simply gone quiet for a while. It looked like someone who never got the chance to come back. Arianna's mother, Sophia Sardinas, didn't wait for answers to come to her. She went out and made her own flyers. She handed them out around Glendale, block by block, asking anyone, everyone if they'd seen her daughter. She pushed for an official turquoise alert, a statewide system meant to mobilize the public fast when someone endangered goes missing. The alert never went out in time. Police issued a public plea of their own, releasing Arianna's photo and asking anyone with information to come forward. A 21-year-old mother of one was now, officially, a missing person, and somewhere out in the desert, the truth was still buried, waiting to be found. Investigators didn't have to look far. A review of Arianna's phone data pointed straight to one name, Domonic Rodolico. He was the last person she'd been in contact with. He was the person on the surveillance footage, walking out of that theater beside her. Police brought him in, and Rodolico had a story ready. He told detectives he'd taken a girl to the movies at Harkins, someone who'd added him on Snapchat, he said, going by the name Yana, his story's version of Arianna. After the film, he claimed, they drove to an unfamiliar area, a parking lot, half asphalt, half dirt. He said the two of them got into the back seat of his car. And then, he claimed, two unknown men appeared out of nowhere. He said they attacked. He said they stabbed her. He said he managed to escape, and that was the last he saw of her. It was a story built for sympathy, a random act of violence, a helpless bystander, a man who barely got out alive. But almost immediately, investigators found reasons not to believe it. For one, Rodolico did have injuries, 3 lacerations on his hand, deep enough that his own mother noticed them the next morning. But injuries alone don't prove an attack happened the way he said it did. Then came the bigger problem. Cell phone and location data showed Rodolico had been to that exact remote desert spot earlier that same day, not once, but 3 separate times, before he ever picked Arianna up that night. That's not the pattern of a man caught off guard by strangers in a random parking lot. That's the pattern of someone preparing a location in advance. And the evidence didn't stop there. Detectives watched Rodolico return, again and again, to a car wash vacuuming the back seat of his Nissan Sentra, wiping it down with towels, then going home and cleaning out his trunk the same way. Behavior investigators would later call inconsistent with someone who'd simply survived a violent robbery. Piece by piece, his story started coming apart. Police said it changed, and changed again. The 2 attackers who started out as violent strangers would eventually not hold up under further questioning at all. Whatever happened out in that desert on July 5th, it was becoming clear to investigators that it wasn't random, it wasn't strangers, and it wasn't the story Domonic Rodolico had told them. Using the location data from both phones, investigators knew almost exactly where to look. On July 11th, 6 days after Arianna was last seen alive, cadaver dogs led police to a remote patch of desert near Lake Pleasant. There, in a shallow grave, they found human remains. Nearby, investigators recovered a handful of items that would end up mattering a great deal among them: 2 Harkins souvenir cups. The same kind seen in that final piece of surveillance footage, the same kind Arianna had been holding, laughing, walking out of a movie theater less than a week earlier. Authorities believed the remains were Arianna's. Formal confirmation would still take time, but for the family, the wait for answers had already stretched on for 6 unbearable days. Not long after, Sofia Sardinas shared the news herself, in a post to Facebook, to everyone who had helped her search. "They just called me," she wrote. "They found my baby's body." A mother who had spent a week handing out flyers, pushing for an alert, refusing to stop looking, now had the answer she'd been searching for. It wasn't the one she wanted. Arianna Bailey Jones was 21 years old. On July 13th, Glendale police announced Domonic Rodolico's arrest. He was booked on a charge of first-degree premeditated murder, along with abandonment or concealment of a dead body. At a press conference, police spokesperson Jose Santiago didn't mince words about how the investigation had unfolded. He told reporters there was sufficient evidence to link Rodolico to the crime, and sufficient evidence to show he'd been in that remote desert area multiple times before Arianna ever was. His story continuously changed, Santiago said in an account that started with an ambush by 2 strangers and, under further questioning, fell apart entirely. Rodolico was held on a $2 million bond, and through it all, he has denied killing Arianna Bailey Jones. As of this video, the case is still pending, no trial, no verdict, no conviction. Under the law, he remains innocent unless and until proven otherwise in a court of law. But go back to where this story started. A man telling police that 2 strangers appeared out of nowhere in the desert, that they attacked, that they stabbed his date, that he barely escaped with his life. Investigators say that story doesn't hold up. Not against a hand injury that couldn't be explained the way he claimed. Not against a location he'd allegedly scouted 3 times before he ever picked her up. Not against a car he was seen scrubbing down over and over in the days after Arianna vanished. That's the story Domonic Rodolico told police, one investigators believe was built to cover a killing they say was planned in advance. And it's the story that, piece by piece, came undone. Before any of this, before the headlines and the court dates, Arianna Bailey Jones was just a young woman with a full life ahead of her. Friends knew her as a creative someone who wrote, who made art, who loved fashion and experimenting with hair and makeup. She dreamed of becoming a stylist. She left behind her son, her parents, 4 sisters, and 3 brothers, a big, close family that is still grieving her today. Her mother, Sophia, said it plainly. She didn't want the world to remember her daughter only as a headline. She wanted people to know Arianna wanted to be a mom. I wanted a family. Wanted, more than anything, to build a good life for her son. There's no getting around the hard truth at the center of this story. Arianna went to meet someone she only knew from a screen, and that decision cost her everything. Millions of people do exactly what she did every single day, and it ends in nothing more than an awkward date or a good story. For Arianna, it ended in tragedy. That's not a reason to live in fear. It's a reason to stay a little more careful, share your plans with someone you trust, meet in public for longer than a first stop, trust your gut if something feels off. Small precautions that cost nothing, but might make all the difference. Arianna Bailey Jones deserved so much more time than she got. This case is still making its way through the courts, and we'll be following it as it develops. If this story affected you, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to stay updated as more comes out, consider subscribing. Thank you for watching, and for taking the time to remember Arianna.